Well, North Korea has announced it will be shutting down its nuclear testing site. That's where they've tested 6 nuclear devices. They plan a ceremony to do that sometime between May 23rd and the 25th. That, as another date looms large a few weeks after that, June 12th, the day when President Trump is scheduled to meet with Kim Jong-un face-to-face in Singapore. And as for dismantling the nuclear site, the president reacted this way on Twitter, quote, North Korea has announced that they will dismantle nuclear test site this month, ahead of the big summit meeting on June 12th. Thank you. A very smart and gracious gesture. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo echoed that sentiment.
North Koreans announced yesterday that they are going to blow up their nuclear site in 10 to 12 days. How big a development is this?
It's good news for the American people and for the world. And so this is one step along the way.
And so what is the significance? Mark Dubowitz joins us, CEO of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Mark, is this a meaningful step, or is it symbolic, considering reports say much of the site has collapsed from explosions?
Well, Eric, I think it's both symbolic and meaningful. I mean, the last nuclear test in September reportedly has collapsed that site anyway. The North Koreans have already developed nuclear weapons on their way to developing intercontinental ballistic missiles. So I don't think there's much new or anything meaningful substantively in this decision. But symbolically, I think Kim Jong-un is certainly trying to signal to the United States that he may be prepared to do a deal.
Yeah, who thought after all these years that they actually would want to, close that? But what else should we see? We've got ballistic missile development, for example. He's pausing it, but hasn't stopped it. He hasn't moved to dismantle that capability.
We've got to be very careful. I mean, the Kim regime has been outplaying U.S. negotiators for decades. They promised in 1992 that they would stop their nuclear program. They promised in '94. They promised in 2005. They've been gaming us for many, many years. We've got to be very, very cautious. We have to absolutely insist that they denuclearize and that it be rapid and complete and verifiable and irreversible.
You're right. I mean, they pulled the wool over the eyes of several administrations. The Clinton administration, President George W. Bush took them off the state sponsor of terrorist list. Well, that's a carrot. All they did is take a baseball bat, to us. But now they've met President Trump, Rocket Man, and with the president's threats, do you think that really has gotten inside Kim Jong-un's head where he's looked up and gone, I better do something, because we are actually giving them a concession just by having the president meet with him one-on-one?
I think it's a big concession. I mean, this meeting on June 12th in Singapore between President Trump and Kim Jong-un could end up being one of the, the greatest reality shows we've had in decades. I think the U.S. government should charge $39.95 for it. We could probably pay off our national debt. It'll be a fascinating summit. But, again, I think the president has been right in the maximum pressure campaign, really squeezing the regime economically, trying to bring the Chinese on board to join that economic squeeze, and also making it very clear that all options are on the table. So the real question that Kim Jong-un will have to assess, is President Trump serious? Is he a paper tiger, or probably more accurately, a Twitter tiger?
Well, it's really squeezed Office 39, the secret office where they get their Mercedes-Benzes and their Chivas Regal. Once you cut off Kim's, Chivas Regal supply and that of the elite, then they're really getting something. But as for that meeting, what has to happen there? Let me play a soundbite for you. From John Bolton, his last appearance with me, he was on with us for 15 years at the Fox News Channel on Sundays, and he predicted that there's one thing to talk about, and that is denuclearize. And if Kim doesn't say yes, no meeting, end of meeting, the president walks out. Here's what Ambassador, now National Security Advisor John Bolton, told me in March.
That's talking about denuclearization.
Yeah, but what if they say
anything
no?
else is just a waste of time.
Yeah, what if they say
then it's a short meeting.
A short meeting?
Short meeting. Okay, fine.
Okay, fine. Short meeting. What are the chances of Kim actually saying, I'm going to give up my nuclear capability? Most people don't see that happening at all.
I think if past his prologue, there's very little chance, unless Kim Jong-un assesses that President Trump is serious about squeezing his regime and potentially taking him to the brink of regime collapse. So I think Ambassador Bolton's exactly right. There's only one thing to talk about, which is permanent, verifiable, complete, and rapid denuclearization. No more games. This isn't Barack Obama negotiating with the Iranians, where he gives massive concessions up front and gives the Iranians patient pathways to nuclear weapons and ICBMs. This has got to be denuclearization so that this brutal regime is not left with the capacity or the materials to produce nuclear weapons and affix them to ICBMs to hold our cities hostage.
And so finally, Mark, your prediction of what happens. Do we get a big announcement after the meeting, or is it a big announcement of future announcements? What do you think is going to happen?
It's hard to say, Eric. I mean, this is really unprecedented, sitting down like this. They really haven't prepared the groundwork, I think, sufficiently to have any sort of detailed sense of where we're going to come out on this. But again, it's really going to have to be Kim's assessment of whether this president is serious, unlike previous presidents, in using all instruments of American power to stop the Kim regime from, again, holding our cities hostage. So I expect an announcement, and hopefully it's an announcement of denuclearization. If it's not, Ambassador Bolton is right. Short meeting, walk away from the table, continue the maximum pressure squeeze.
And that in itself would be a pretty blunt strategic message anyway. Mark, always good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric, for having me.
Of course.